Galia Tanay. It's a great pleasure to be here with you in Spain. After having spent these almost 7 days here together, I think I've been wanting to interview in English for a long time because I think there's not a lot of content of you in English on the internet, because I know that you really like face-to-face transmission.
Right.
And so we've been spending this time together here in Spain. I think one of the issues that I really wanted to talk to you about was because for the past 7 days, we have really put away our phones, which is quite radical in this day and age.
Yeah.
So when we spend 7 days without our phones, meditating and looking inside, we can really see what effects this has on our consciousness. And we've also discussed this together. And I wanted to ask you, or discuss with you, how you think we can resolve these issues that these cell phones are bringing into our lives, especially because they exploit this very deep issue in us, or very deep need for connection and for intimacy. Yes, I wanted to explore with you how you think we can bring more balance into our use of smartphones and to really mitigate these deep issues that they bring into our lives.
Okay, this is a very great topic that I really like to discuss because it has a really deep effect on our lives. And much of the time, as with many other things, we have absolutely no awareness of the effects, and we don't really take the time or take the measures to really examine these effects. And I think that if we follow the basic instructions of, first of all, paying attention, one of the first things that I think is very important in this exploration of our relationship, and this is a real relationship in our life. Most of the people has a relationship with their phones. So one of the things we really see, for example, is the concept or the idea that you cannot live without your phone. So let's make a thought experiment, okay? And let's try to imagine ourselves being taken from our phone, being separated from our phone for a week. For most people nowadays, this thought, this idea is tantamount to like an existential threat. So they really feel, and I remember that before the first time I moved back to a dumb phone for a few months, I really had the thought that I could not survive in this world. So I could not even exist without my phone. So I think the first thing that we can pay attention to is all these beliefs, all these ideas about our relationship with our phone. And just like with any other substance or habit or person in our life, when we start to examine what kind of concepts we have about our relationship with this particular thing, few concepts can kind of pop up and mark that we are in a danger zone. So the first is, of course, this idea that we cannot exist without a certain person, substance, or technology. Okay, it is not air. It is not water. It is something that until several years ago we absolutely could exist without. Yet right now, it had captured our mind in a way that convinced us that we cannot. And I think there are many other such ideas that when we start to examine, we suddenly realize, okay, this is the ideas that I'm holding with regard to this kind of technology. One of the things that really help us examine our relationship to stuff is renunciation. This basic practice is very, very useful if we want to just watch how our mind is relating to things. So renunciation can start with things like putting your phone aside for 1 hour, deciding that this hour is a phoneless hour in your day. And during this hour, we can examine the automatic behaviors, mental behaviors, that are pulling us towards this phone. So what are the needs? What are the habitual patterns that when we think about going to our phone, using our phone, what is going up there? What is binding us? What is limiting us to the kind of use that we are currently making? in this kind of device. Okay, and when we start to examine it, many times what we find, what we discover, is a sense of longing, a sense of yearning, a sense of deep wish for something. So it can be human connection, it can be this yearning for being seen or receive some kind of feedback from the world, okay? It can be things like certainty. So I want to know stuff. I want to make sure that I will not get stuck in traffic, okay? I want to check things that I'm going to do in the future again and again in my phone so I can plan them better, okay? All these things that can be great and useful. So I think there is a very beneficial way to use technology and to use the internet specifically. But when we are driven by completely automatic patterns, completely automatic yearnings that immediately translate to automatic behaviors with regard to, again, our use of social media, our use of different kind of monitoring and planning devices that our phone provides us, then we are blocking many times ways of fulfilling these needs, or way of reaching out to fulfill these needs in ways which are much more constructive for us. So the first thing is renunciation. Take an hour. If you can take an hour, great. Maybe you can take a day off. Okay, so in Judaism, for example, there is this idea of Shabbat, a whole day that you don't touch technology at all. One day a week that you are putting everything aside and you just stay present. Okay, so many different ways of just putting it aside, not for the sake of putting it aside, but for the sake of examining and exploring your relationship with this thing. Once you did that, many times you start to see the destructive ways, the painful ways in which you use this. So you start to see how this kind of distraction, constant distraction, for example, very common example of this is how this constant distraction and consumerism of content is keeping you alienated from what is. Okay, so, and I don't talk about it in a spiritual or like existential sense, but I'm talking about your kids. Okay, so if you decide to have a phoneless hour in your family, for example, in which you and your kids do not touch screens or phones or tablets or whatever kind of this constant consumerism of content, suddenly you find a sense of togetherness or presence that when you use this kind of things, you just don't feel, you just don't sense. Okay, and from many times it's frightening or boring or strange in the beginning because we are so unused to it that we don't know exactly what to do with these spaces. This is a good thing. It's not supposed to be pleasant in the beginning. Just like with a meditation practice, when you renounce from your habitual patterns, usually it's not necessarily a pleasant experience.
Yeah, they give up a fight.
Yeah, they give up a fight. So many voices in our head starting to tell us, what is this nonsense? What is this, why am I doing this? It's so much easier to put on the television, and why do I have to spend time together? Yeah, but if we just stay with this inconvenience for just a little bit, and again, I'm talking about an hour a day. If you have a partner, what will happen if you will take a phoneless hour a day together? What can spring out of this that you right now don't experience because of this masking, because of this constant, again, consumerism of content, being in this position of passive consumer. Okay, so renunciation for me is the first step. But just like with the spiritual practice, the second phase or the second step demands that we bring ourselves into wholesome action. So what is a wholesome way of using this device? What can be a way that actually meets our needs, our real needs? So if what we find that we yearn for is connection or community, a sense of community, so I'm starting to examine my behaviors online and see, okay, does that behavior really support really develops a sense of community in my life? Does it make me closer to the people that I want to find myself closer to? It can. So I can find groups of interest in which I start to engage. I can find action communities, so communities that take actions about stuff that I care about. All these things, I can learn things and develop my mind in ways that really find reciprocity with other participants of the same group. Yeah, but all of this demands a lot of attention because we are not alone in this game. Okay, we are playing a game with something that all the time has an interest in us and wish to, in many ways, follow us and predict our behavior and channel it just a little bit to directions that not necessarily will result in our well-being. And this is something that we really have to be very mindful of, because our phone is very smart. It's not just a smartphone, you know? And it presents us with things that may pull us, but the basic intention that was put inside this artificial intelligence is not to promote our physical and mental health. It's not. And this is why when we are engaging in this kind of relationship, we have to take the responsibility. And after renouncing and putting time of exploration, of seeing what we really want from technology, how we really use it, what is the automatic beliefs that keeps on coming to our minds when we come in contact with this kind of devices, after we become much more aware of this, we can start to choose our behavior and to really, really create spaces online, spaces on social media, spaces in our use of the internet that really meeting our needs and not masking it or distracting our mind or being used as means of telling us that we are unworthy or that we lack something or that we need to compare ourselves, and all these things that many forces inside this world of technology are all the time pushing towards.
I think it's one of the things that comes up is that the great misfortune is that these medias, they exploit our need and sense of wanting connection, and yet they actually do not satisfy that need in many cases. If we yearn for intimacy or yearn for connection, then we just end up swiping instead of going out and meeting people in real life, then it's pretty sad.
Yeah, I also, as a body-oriented person and a body-oriented teacher, I really feel that going back to the body and like sensing the signals that it gives us during this activity, is really supporting this process of awakening from this trance of technology. Because many times, if we just stay connected to our physical experience, you probably know that after a few hours of using these things in a very automatic way, your body feels terrible. It feels like you go out to the world and you feel like a little bit robotic, you know, and you feel like your skin is not open anymore, and like your muscles are kind of behaving strange because you've been totally absorbed in something that makes you bodiless. And I think one of the greatest tragedy of this kind of connection that has so much benefits, so many beautiful things that can, again, flower from it, but one of the great tragedies of that is that many times it creates really severe alienations between people and their bodies, between the needs of people for connection in the bodily sense and their ability to actually meet each other. Because when they meet each other as bodies, so many things happen that does not happen when they meet each other as words or as content in the computer. And these things that happen in the body are, in the beginning, can be very embarrassing if you are not used to them. It's much easier to chat, you know? You can present yourself in a certain way. You can even have sex now on chats, you know? But it's really a misrepresentation of what a full bodily experience of connection is. And I think this is one of the things that if we go back to the body, if you listen to the signals of the body, if we use the enormous intelligence of the body, it really is showing us the limits of this kind of communication, and it's kind of pushing us towards real life connection, towards full body experiences of meeting another and touching touching the other, and dealing with the smell of the other, and with the whatever the thing that we don't like about the body or about the body of ourselves, and the embarrassment of being so exposed emotionally that only comes when you actually meet someone bodily,
Yeah. It also brings another thought to mind, and also leads me to the second topic I wanted to talk to you about, because from my experience, in the psychedelic experience, the phone becomes an enemy in some way. It's like in my previous psychedelic experiences, it's like for several hours I'm unable to communicate and function with the phone. And I know that you've been active in the psychedelic field for many years, and so as we both started in the Theravadan tradition, in which one of the precepts is a complete abstinence from mind-altering substances, and I know that that was a key tenet in your life for many years and is no longer. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit. I know it's a very deep topic, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the psychedelic experience and how that relates to meditation practice and how these can work together to lead to peace of mind. Yeah.
Wow, it is a great topic. It is a very deep and wide topic, and we can, discuss it in so many.
So maybe I have an
angles.
an angle for it, because having now spent 6 months in India, in India people are engaging a lot in mind-altering substances, especially people who are very young and just start trying ecstasy and LSD and mushrooms. And how does a healing psychedelic experience differ from someone just taking ecstasy or LSD and going to a party on the beach?
Okay. So, first of all, let's talk about the idea of cognitive liberty. Okay? Because for me, the development of the mind and the expansion of the mind and body reveals many aspects, many experiences, many realms, that we are not in touch with as we live in everyday society with our phone, in our day job, doing habitual stuff all the day, just repeating the same thoughts, the same behaviors, and so on. When you start engaging in any kind of mind-altering practices, and meditation is complete, mind-altering practice. If you go and you renounce for a day or for a week or for 6 months, then your mind starts to reveal itself, and your body starts to reveal itself in ways that you previously didn't experience. Okay? For me, psychedelics specifically are doing something very similar, in the sense that they open up realms and aspects and fields of experience that were previously unfamiliar to the subject, to the person. For me, as a social kind of direction, as a social kind of move, I believe that our society should start to accept the idea that any person is free to alter his mind and to explore altered states of consciousness, and to have cognitive liberty to have experiences for any purpose that this person wants. And this should not be a legal question, it should not be a moral question in a sense, but we should start to look at the ways in which people use these substances and ask about the function of its use. So, for me, when a young person, out of curiosity, is going and starting to take psychedelic substances, that can be a beneficial thing in his life or her life. It might be, it may be a beneficial thing. It depends a lot on the set and the setting of the experience. Curiosity is a great motivation to do stuff. It's not less than the wish for healing, okay? And for me, many times we see it in the psychedelic community and the psychedelic research and psychedelic renaissance. People talk about, okay, but we're going to use it only for healing purposes and not recreational purposes. For me, as a person who is coming from many different groups and forms of use of psychedelics, many ways of using psychedelics as broadening the horizons of ourselves, but also of our society, this is frustrating to hear. Because for me, people that has engaged with psychedelics should have the sense that this should not be condemned or judged, okay, in narrow ways of saying, okay, if a person is suffering, it's okay to give it to him. But if a person feels good, then he's not allowed, he's not free to investigate, to explore his mind. Why is that? Is it dangerous? Yeah, it may be. What are the dangers? This is a very deep topic, and we could educate the young, and we could talk to them sincerely and openly about what are the dangers of each substance and what actually can happen if you take, for example, MDMA in a setting which is not right for you, or if you have a history of trauma. There are some dangers in consuming substances, okay? But I think that putting a hierarchical kind of, order of what uses are more proper and what uses are like for fun is something very, for me, very strange as a psychedelic activist. I would like to promote a sincere and evidence-based and empirical discourse about like real dangers, real benefits, and if a 19-year-old, which is mentally stable and strong and very curious about himself, if my son at the age of 19 will want to examine and explore with the substances, I will not tell him, no, it's just for healing purposes. I think this message is very alienating for many group of population that actually wish and has interest in their mind. And when we talk about this meeting point with Theravada and Buddhism, but it's not only with Theravada, but with Buddhism in general, I really like to think about this idea of intoxication. You definitely can use psychedelics as a form of intoxication. If you do habitual use, without any kind of intention, and you do it like repeatedly and you don't learn a lot from it, it definitely can be used as something which intoxicates the mind and kind of blur it and makes you more confused. This is some of the dangers, again, that you can talk about and help people examine their use in substances, just like with the phone. It's not very different. You can misuse or abuse your phone. You can misuse or abuse LSD. Definitely. It's not a good substance, and it's not always healing. It depends on your relationship with it. And the question you should be asking, I think, are about, is it intoxicating your mind? If you smoke weed, okay, and many people in India and other places smoke a lot of weed, it can have very beneficial, medicinal, spiritual modes of using, that help people connect to themselves and connect to nature and expand their ability to be together and, bring them in touch with the sacred. And it can easily be used as just a way to intoxicate and dull the mind and just kind of blur you and detach you from this beauty and vibrant thing that is reality.
It is in a way very similar to the phone, because people who smoke weed regularly every day are doing it in order to avoid feeling certain feelings or certain needs, which is similar to the phone in a way, because sometimes we just go to it when there's something missing or don't have to feel what we're feeling. So.
And again, you can take the example of people who are using weed all day, every day, because they suffer from, for example, from PTSD or from chronic pain. And this is their way of dealing with the situation that they find themselves in, okay? And it's something that with right intention and right, setting and right kind of work can actually help you to come in contact with your life, even if you use it every day, all the day, if you suffer from chronic pain, because the option of living with this pain is much more alienating and depressing and shattering than if you use cannabis or if you smoke cannabis from the morning until you go to sleep, you know? And so again, I think that like accepting the idea that there is no one answer about these substances, there is no one way of use which is better than the other, or there is no recipe that we say, okay, if you use every day, all the day, then it's for sure it's that. No, for some people, it's a really medicinal support and a very good thing in their life. And even if they don't suffer from chronic pain or from cancer or from whatever, PTSD, some people use it in a way which is beneficial for them. You have to be brave enough, in a way, to pose the questions to yourself. And you have to be brave enough to pose this question about what happens when I withdraw for an hour. Again, if you use weed and you think you cannot live with it, then you may have a problem, okay? If you use weed and you think that you're worthless with it, okay? Or in many other ways, there are so many questions that or what happens to your relationship with reality when you consume this substance? How does your relationship with reality, does it become more rich? Does it become more fulfilling? Does it become more creative? Or does it become more dull and blurry and full of aversion or full of just nothing, no interest, no life force? These questions can really help you, I think, if you examine your habits. Because no habit can be kind of predetermined to say, okay, this habit is always bad, right? Almost. There are some substances that are almost always bad, you know, if we talk about crystal meth or, you know, there are some substances that I don't see a lot of potential of making good use of. But again, I don't think it should be illegal. I think people that do use the substances do it out of some kind of need. And if we as society can put aside the legal question and actually meet these people and find out what the need that is kind of pulling them into this use and help them and create a sense of community that can support them, then we can help them much better, and the substances naturally will kind of subside and decrease. It's also what is actually happening in places that has made this kind of revolution, like Portugal and Spain, that we see, for example, the rates of heroin use that were part of the reason for this change of policy, and they really dropped once it went out from the legal terrain into the terrain of, okay, how are we as society meet these people, connect to these people, and help them to find a sense of meaning, sense of community, sense of worth, you know?
So the process of decriminalization.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good.
C'est tout?
I think we're done, yeah.
Okay.
Good.